We want to achieve a fairer, greener, more digitalized and inclusive society, and to foster a competitive, dynamic and cutting-edge economy. To accelerate these transitions, we launched in 2020 the National Innovation Fund, CDP Venture Capital Fund, thus making the venture capital system a cornerstone of Italy's economic development. The fund, which can support startups at all stages of their life cycle, is experiencing a remarkable response in the framework of an overall growth of the venture capital market. Despite the pandemic, in fact, the total volume of venture capital funds invested in our country have reached 778 million euros in the first semester 2021 only, while in the entire 2020 they amounted to 595 million euros. Economic diplomacy is a priority for Italy, featuring among the key missions of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. In response to the impact of the pandemic and in view of the recovery, we designed a new comprehensive strategy in support of our company's efforts to compete on the global markets. This strategy is conceived as a pact between the public and the private sector and focuses precisely on digital transition, technology, and innovation, giving special attention to the promotion of Italian small and medium enterprises. With an overall amount of 300 billion euros, the performance of Italian exports in the first 7 months of 2021 has surpassed the figures of 2019, that is considered the record year for Italian export. The positive outlook of our GDP for the current year, which is expected to grow by 6%, confirms that we have chosen the right path. In pursuing it, we are relying more and more on our innovation ecosystem. We are convinced that the contamination between traditional productive value chains and innovative solutions is the key to deliver better, safer, more sustainable and equitable growth. This is why, in addition to the G20 Innovation League, we launched, together with the Italian Trade Agency, the Global Startup Program. It helps 150 Italian startups to increase the business opportunities abroad through concrete collaboration with international incubators. The same spirit inspired us in promoting the first Italian Innovation and Cultural Hub that I'm going to inaugurate in the upcoming weeks in the iconic city of San Francisco. All these initiatives will provide an additional boost to the Italian startups ecosystem, which has already showed its dynamism and resilience during the pandemic and which counts today over thousands of thriving teams and companies. Their number has continued to grow during the last 2 years, with an increase of over 8% in 2020 compared to 2019, and over an additional 14% in the first 6 months of 2021. In light of these considerations and as a contribution to our efforts for a better recovery, we hope this special event will provide a remarkable future to the G20 activities in the years to come. Before concluding my remarks, I therefore wish to thank the Indonesian government for its willingness to host the second edition of this event during their G20 presidency next year in 2022. We have worked during the last weeks to ensure that our exercise would be enriched and reinforced during 2022. Without anticipating the contents of today's final session, I would like to thank Mr. Samuel Panjarapan, Director General of Informatics Applications of the Ministry of Communication and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia, for the continuous cooperation, and I am sure we will have the chance to meet again in Indonesia. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, today we have the opportunity to outline and share innovative ideas on 5 selected areas: clean tech, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things and wearables, smart cities and mobility, healthcare. Your generous engagement shows us that the time is ripe for governments, companies, investors, and research communities to join forces and shape together a global innovation agenda for the post-COVID world. To reach these ambitious goals, you can count on the talent and fresh mindset of thousands of Italian startups, innovators, and researchers, as well as on those of their outstanding colleagues from all over the G20 and invited countries. I wish all of you a very productive working day. Thank you very much.
As during this fourth revolution, we are able to detach things that we always thought together and not shareable. We, for example, have the split between presence and localization. We here are localized here in this room in Sorrento, but we are in presence from all over the world through the internet. So we have in presence, but not localized here, our second speaker, who is the Minister for Technological Innovation and Digital Transition of the Italian Republic, Vittorio Colao.
Hello. I'm really honored to participate in today's event, and I have to say I very much regret being unable to attend in person. I have to say in my current role, I really miss the energy and the entrepreneurial spirit of startups. This would have been a great opportunity, but unfortunately I cannot make it. Let me start first of all by thanking Minister Di Maio, Luigi, for having supported this unique opportunity for exchanging inspiring ideas and discussing forward-looking projects from all over the world. I also would like most sincerely to congratulate all the participants to this global competition. As I was saying, your creativity, your sense of entrepreneurship, your long-term vision, but I would say most importantly, your courage to experiment, I think are very important today, and they can make an essential contribution to things that are very, very important to all governments in these days. First of all, strengthening the culture of innovation, which we need because we are in uncertain times. Second, to support long-term economic growth and resilience, which again we need in order to come out healthily from the pandemic. And third, not to be forgotten, also to overcome the social, economic, environmental, and legal challenges that technology progress always poses. Let me also say that the 5 challenges that you are trying to overcome are particularly important. I would like to go through them briefly. First of all, innovative clean tech solutions are really urgently needed to accelerate the energy transition and to match global supply and demand in the most efficient and sustainable way. It's very important to think of, for example, of the semiconductor shortage that we are facing today and all the consequences that these will have. Second, ongoing advances in artificial intelligence have shown impressive results from business to government, but we need further efforts to make AI-related projects and services more robust, more accurate, and more sustainable. We need to tackle issues like bias, we need to tackle model uncertainties, unexpected outcomes. All these things have to find a solution in your technological innovation. Third, we know that 75 billion devices are expected to be connected to the internet by 2025. The Internet of Things will require advancements in 2 areas, at least in my view. One is, of course, security. There's a huge amount of innovation there. And the other one is standardization across different jurisdictions. If we solve these 2 challenges, then the potential of IoT is truly, truly massive. Fourth, With smart cities and mobilities, we face the opportunity to deliver more efficient, sustainable, and inclusive urban environments. This requires you, us and you, to reimagine the way we live in our homes, in our neighborhoods, our commuting habits, our working patterns. So there will be a massive transformation in that area as well. And finally, an area that is very dear to me, healthcare. Here we are confronted by two enormous opportunities. First of all, to strengthen international collaboration in developing data standards and interoperability specifications, but also to invest in digital skills for our citizens, to improve the medical services to them, and to allow them to have all the benefits coming from telemedicine and from e-health. So if I have to conclude my remarks, I really have three messages. First and foremost, we need constant cooperation between the public and the private sector. And when I say private sector, I really mean the very large companies, but also startups and small enterprises, because this would be fundamental to really have a thriving and stimulating ecosystem of innovation. Second message, we also need, and this is more for us, to enhance the cooperation across governments and also within the national administrations, public administrations, to let knowledge, best practices, innovative ideas flourish and support each other. And then third, the message which is frankly more focused to innovators and experimentators. Experimentation will be very important, and creativity also. They will be, I think, the crucial means for modernizing our governments, our societies, and our political systems, and to create more trust between the citizens and those who are elected to represent them. And here again, smart solutions can really be, I think, a very, very important tool to that end. So once again, I wish to express my gratitude for this event, my appreciation for your work, and my trust that your contributions and the contributions of your ideas and projects will make all of us more informed, richer, and better equipped to do our job. So I wish you a productive and fruitful discussion, and again, I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you to Minister of Innovation Vittorio Colao. And now on stage, it's the moment of the President of the Italian Trade Agency, Carlo Ferro.
Good morning, everyone. Honorable Minister Luigi Di Maio, Mr. José Ángel Gurria, it's really a pleasure to meet all the distinguished guests and participants today at this G20 Innovation League, which is an important occasion to discuss innovation and new ideas. Doing it in Sorrento is a sign how Italy and the beauty of landscape fertilizes the minds. From Renato Dulbecco to Ettore Majorana, Region Campania gave birth to innovative scientists. And the Italian ecosystem is a crib to nurture technology transfer into new business proposal. I don't want to mention many numbers. Let me share only two data. Italy is the European country with the highest number of scientific publications, and the number of startups in Italy grew even during 2020, reaching 12,000 at the beginning of the year. Creativity is contagious. Pass it. This is a quote by Albert Einstein, and I think that G20 Innovation League is an arena to follow this advice. Indeed, innovation asks for openness and cooperation, and in a world more and more web-connected, only in a spirit of international cooperation, clearly within respect of intellectual properties, we can enhance technology development for economies and societies. New cross-border partnerships, business synergies within global value chain, and venture capital cross-border investment will certainly help to address the two transitions, digital and ecological, which the pandemic make even more urgent. Clean tech, artificial intelligence, IoT, smart cities and mobility, healthcare, the 5 challenges which today's contest focuses on are of the utmost importance to achieve this goal. And the goal is to expand the boundaries of these ecosystems. I'm glad that the Italian Trade Agency, under the coordination of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, has been part of this initiative in its conceptions and organization for 4 reasons. First of all, it's our mission, connecting dots for business cross-border. Second, I believe that innovation and export are of mutual benefit in a virtuous circle where innovation fuel export, export grow revenues, consolidating new enterprises, and financing more innovation, and so on, so far. Third reason, this is an opportunity to contribute to the inclusion by gender and by generation. The talent, the energy, the vision of change of young generation and women cannot be left behind, not only as a social duty, but as an opportunity not to miss such essential contribution to new ideas and new business models. Number 4, it fits with our strategic focus on small enterprises and startups. Inspired by the Honorable Minister Di Maio, we want to accompany more small enterprises to the success in foreign markets. At this purpose, the Italian trade agencies has multiplied by a factor of 3 the budget dedicated to startup through 6 new dedicated actions. The Global Startup Program, bringing every year over 100 innovative startups to accelerate for 8 weeks in accelerators abroad in order to tailor their business proposition to a foreign market and to scale up with new business partnership and new financing. We ran already 2 rounds of that program, and here I want to mention the one with the Dubai Future Foundation and to thank His Excellencies Khalfan Belul. And just this week, we have announced the first initiative of the 3rd round, the one for 2022. The Startup Corner, another initiative dedicated to emerging players, put in the heart of the main international affairs in Italy, in each vertical chain to offer to startup higher visibility. The extended presence from Italy, organized and sponsored by the Italian Trade Agency at the big events for startup. And I look forward at meeting many of you at Consumer Electronics Show, at Mobile World Congress, at Viva Technology, to mention a few for the next year. Our cooperation with foreign accelerators extends into Italy, where new accelerators are establishing as a joint initiative between the foreign accelerators, CDP Equity, regions, leading Italian industrial players, and the Italian Trade Agency. And in this respect, let me mention the Motor Valley Accelerator, already active on the emerging technologies for clean and connected vehicles. The 5th is our effort going abroad, and next to come will be the Italian Innovation and Culture Hub in San Francisco, which will open by the end of this year. And finally, the occasion of this G20 and the participation of the Italian Trade Agency among the organizers of G20 Innovation League. Here, I wanted to ensure the availability of the Italian Trade Agency to support the legacy of this event, like the format, the web platform, whatever could be instrumental to continue its organizations. And our experience, if organizers wish, can be put at the service as a coordination desk for the G20 Innovation League in the upcoming years, as the proposal of the Honorable Minister Di Maio. In conclusion, the success of our startup enterprises depends on 3 ingredients: the consolidation of their business model and the timely industrialization of their proposal solution, the consequent expansion on international market, and the attraction of the required financial resources from venture capital. These three challenges, industrialization, internationalization, and financing, are interconnected, and the probability to succeed increase as if they are addressed and won together. Events like this G20 Innovation League wanted to help in this direction, and I wanted to wish to all participants, startup and venture capital, a very, very fruitful session. Thank you.
Thank you, President Carlo Ferro. And now we have the speech of Chief Executive Officer, National Fund for Innovation, CDP Venture Capital, Enrico Resmini.
Hello, good morning. Good morning to everyone connected or in person in beautiful Sorrento. Unfortunately, I could not be there with you today. A sudden flu struck me to bed a few days ago. So it's not COVID, luckily enough, but still I have to stay here in Rome. So sorry for this, but it's a pleasure to be here today with you. I'd like to thank the G20 presidencies for setting this Innovation League up. I'd like to thank the Italian Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Italian trade agencies, and CMEST, and all the partners that made this all possible. I believe the Innovation League is a kind of a unique opportunity for connecting the dots. Let me just be more specific. I think there is a first set of dots that we need to connect. It's talking about startups. It has been mentioned before, the overall world ecosystem of startups is literally booming. I think there is roughly been invested in the first 7 months of this year, almost $400 billion US, which is a huge amount of money invested in startups. We have 1 to 2 unicorns, which are announced every day at worldwide level. And I think we're just at the beginning of this importance of startups riding the wave of innovation and adoption of new exponential technology. This ride, I think, has been quite accelerated by some fundamental shifts that are happening at human level. The first one is clearly on the digital transition. More and more products and services are being used through digital platforms, digital interface, and this is deeply changing the way human beings are getting connected and using the services and products produced by our companies. The second shift is the green, what I would call revolution. This is something that it is a necessity for our world, but it implies a big change, a big shift in the way we consume resources, in the way we move, in the way we exploit the planet. The third is also extremely important. We have seen the importance during the pandemic. It's life science. Life science is adopting new technologies and allowing us to cure and put our citizens safe from viruses and all the other stuff. So I think these shifts are really changing the way we as human beings live in our planet. And startups are at the frontier of this change because they are agile in the way they adopt these technologies, in the way they propose solutions. But they are not the only dots we want to connect today. There is also another set of dots, which is very important. It's venture capital firms. In the past decade, we have seen the growth and birth of several thousand venture capital firms. The number is a high number. We roughly have worldwide 3,000 venture capital firms. These venture capital firms now have the need to be global, have the need to be connected worldwide. Why? Because the deals, the startups are more and more global deals, because they need to find and spot opportunities in every country. It's not anymore the time of few countries leading the way into innovation. Innovation is spread all over the world, and venture capital need to connect among them in order to make sure that the best deals are pursued. The last set of dots that need to be connected is corporates. We know that startups benefit from working with large corporations because they can exploit their services, they can exploit their sites, their customers, but also corporates need to work with startups. For example, I was looking at a report published by a consultancy in the recent months that says that investments in corporate venture capital by corporates has been increasing in the past 5 years on a yearly basis by 40% year on year. And if you look at the Fortune 100 top companies, now roughly 75% of them have a venture capital unit. So I think these three set of dots, startups, venture capital firms, and corporates, had the need to connect among them. And Innovation League, this first event, so important, is the way to connect these dots within an institutional frame. Now, the way the G20 Innovation League team has selected to connect these dots is through these 5 human major challenges. And let me just give you a number. We made the math. Across these 5 challenges in the past 18 months, roughly 70% of the total venture capital money has been invested across these 5 major challenges. So they are really important. They are really central to the investment activity, but also to the activity of startups. Within all this kind of changing and growing environment, Italy is playing out its role. In the past, we were behind in terms of importance and development of our innovation ecosystem. Thanks to the activity and the push and the drive of past government and the current government, I think in the past 2 years, there's been quite an effort to push the development of the innovation ecosystem. And as Minister Di Maio was saying in his opening remark, now we have a healthy ecosystem that, in the first 6 months has invested, the same amount above the amount that was on a yearly basis invested in 2019 and 2020. And, more and more startups are arising here in Italy. In the past 12 months, 3,000 new startups have seen the activity. So there is something really going on, which is very interesting. Our National Innovation Fund, which I have the privilege and the honor to lead, is really instrumental to this growth. We now have reached 1.5 billion euros of assets under management, and we are investing on our Italian startups, on our Italian venture capital firms, and striking collaborations with international investors in order to make sure that Italy is on their radar screen when it comes to investing into innovation. We have currently already more than 150 startups in our portfolio. We have invested in more than 15 venture capital firms. So it's first steps, but it's really promising first steps. And we hope that through this Innovation League, from now onwards, Italy will be recognized as a great country where to develop startups, but also where to play investments on very promising startups. So I'm really looking forward the following sessions, and I hope we will start from now onwards connecting our dots and making stronger networks at the worldwide level. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Enrico Resmini. And as we are building, as I told before, and our speakers make us understand a new ecosystem, we have some goals that are common, that are global goals, but we also need vision, and visions from many people who can inspire the way to reach the goals for all over the world and all over the people and country who participates to this great challenge. So I'm honored to present you our guest, former OECD Secretary General José Ángel Gurría Treviño, and his inspirational vision will talk us about the role of innovative technologies and startups in tackling global challenges.
Thank you, Minister Di Maio, for inviting me to give the speech today. It's about the role of innovative technologies and startups in tackling global challenges. I hope I'll be able to inspire you or maybe challenge you by suggesting simply that this is the most critical policy responsibility that we have today. Simple as that. Now, a key question to consider is what to do with, and indeed, what to do about technological progress. Well, a simple question, but the simplicity belies the importance. Actually, the way we answer this question will define the future of our society. Technological progress is there for the taking, is there for the making, is there for exploiting, is there for improving society, our standards of living. It's happening whether we like it or not. It's irreversible. It is inevitable. It is irresistible. The great challenge is how we adopt it, how we adapt it, how we use it, how we profit from it, how we leverage the enormous potential that it has. Now, technology can improve our lives, but it can also challenge us in many ways. In our work, 14% of the jobs in the OECD countries are likely to be automated. And about 1/3 of all the jobs, so 14% plus 1/3 is about 47%, that's close to half of all the jobs are going to be disrupted somehow. They're going to be changed, they're going to be modified. In our society, where the presence or absence of digital tools will determine our access to services and to opportunities. Also, in our ethics, where the use or misuse of information and personal data can undermine the trust, can actually destroy lives, livelihoods. Now let me focus on 3 domains that we're talking about here. The first of all is small and medium enterprises, SMEs. Italy is a country of SMEs. It's a country that has discovered how to manage best its SMEs and how to integrate them into global value chains. The second is startups, which I am going to say is one type of SMEs. And the third is cities. Cities. Now, let me start with SMEs. SMEs account for 60% of the private sector workforce, for about 95% of all the companies in OECD countries. But if you talk about emerging economies, then the percentages are even higher. SMEs also have much lower levels of productivity, lower levels of trade, and as a result, typically offer lower levels of salaries than their larger counterparts. However, despite challenges related to economies of scale, many SMEs that fully embrace the potential of innovative technologies are able to outperform larger competitors and to thrive. Now, we need to help the millions of SMEs around the world who are leveraging on these technologies, who need to leverage on these technologies, whose survival depends on these technologies. Now, COVID-19 showed just how important innovative technologies are. 50% of SMEs have increased the digital take-up since the crisis started, moving operations online to remain in business, to mitigate the challenge of the pandemic. And many of these are here to stay. You know, these changes are quite permanent. You know, because we made so much investment on these things, but because they work, they function, they are successful. Now, however, with the pandemic, now there's been an acceleration of the digital transition in the SMEs, but they continue to lag behind in the adoption of the digital technologies. Now, the same old challenge inhibiting broader take-up remain in many of the SME cases. Even with the digital, with the pandemic and everything else, many of the obstacles, many of the problems that remain. So for all those of you who are in the business of promoting SMEs, really the old problems are still here with us. Now, challenges, digital security risks, huge digital gaps, awareness, skills. Not only digital skills, but skills in general. Data culture, and of course, challenges in accessing finance and investment that hold them back in making what I call the digital leap, the digital big leap forward. Leap to higher productivity, leap to higher innovation, leap to higher wages, to higher well-being in general. The right policies can help them in making that leap. Now, are we talking about policies related to the pandemic? Yes, of course we are. Are we talking about the recovery? Yes, of course we are. But mostly we are talking about permanent, durable policies, including policies that address these long-standing challenges regardless of the pandemic, because the pandemic will be over, but the scars of the pandemic will still be there and the problems will still be with us. That means deepening the existing policies, creating new sources of support, designing new approaches, new paradigms, putting in place policies that enable SMEs to exploit opportunities, to mitigate the challenges, and to face the pandemic, the problems of the pandemic, but mostly to integrate into global value chains. As I said, the Italians seem to have mastered this challenge. It means policies that enable SMEs to drive the green transition, which we cannot achieve without the SMEs. Why? Well, because in Europe, they account for around 2/3 of industrial pollution. So if we do not get the SMEs to be greener, then we will not achieve the green revolution we are looking for. It means policies that enable the SMEs to drive the green transition. As I said, now, because you are talking about, what did I say? 60% of the workforce? I said 90, 80, 90, 95% of all the companies. So basically, it's a universe we absolutely have to tackle. Now, it means policies that will boost the productivity, boost the resilience, boost their ability to drive inclusive growth. Now, while many of these policies will be about regulation, about red tape, eliminating bureaucracy, etc., the critical policies will relate to innovative technologies. This will be the key. We can eliminate bureaucracy, but if we do not incorporate innovative technologies into the process of SMEs, then we will not change them. And this is not just about SMEs creating these technologies. I'll come back to this, but it's about creating pathways of awareness, access to those technologies, which are the best suited to integrate into global value chains, which will help bridge the skills gaps. I said skills, but we're also talking about upskilling. We're also talking about reskilling. One is upgrade of the skills, but the other one is changing completely, moving from one sector to another sector of the activity. And that means moving the workforce also. Now, one that will help address the deficit of financial resources. How do we deal with the problem of finance? Here we have a very challenging issue. To adopt the latest technologies, SMEs need resources. And again, access to credit is crucial. However, in the wake of the pandemic, many enterprises now have significant debt burden. The bold, quick, unprecedented response of many governments was in the form of debt or guarantees. Now, this support, I have to say, saved millions of SMEs, but has created a legacy that needs careful management, not only to ensure their continued survival, but also to ensure that the growing levels of debt does not weigh them down, become a burden that is so heavy, to invest in new technologies that will drive and sustain the recovery. So, SMEs debt in, for example, in APEC countries, we usually talk about the APEC and about the startups and they increased by more than 7% year on year in 2020, the largest increase recorded since 2013. And in some countries, for example, like Peru, SME loans increased by 63%. I mean, you're talking about, this is a whole generation of SMEs now under the burden of much bigger debt. This means looking at measures that convert that support into perhaps grants or maybe equity. Typically, of course, governments are not going to be looking at thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands, maybe through development banks, maybe through the commercial banking system, etc. Now, governments can also participate, encourage, and provide incentives for SMEs to go technological as part of their COVID turnaround process. Procurement, obviously, is a very important way. Even the United States, they have this SME, procurement system, which benefits the SMEs and the startups. You're talking about ecosystems. It was mentioned here, the ecosystems that can support SMEs in embracing emerging technologies, the cloud, 3D printing, the Internet of Things, big data, blockchain, you have it, you know. Ecosystems that can provide networking, advice, support for the SMEs. When you're dealing with the regulatory agencies, for example, accessing finance, and also ensuring access to 21st century infrastructure, which is sometimes one of the biggest obstacles that we have. We are promoting them, we're sometimes even providing finance, but we don't have the necessary infrastructure so that they can thrive. Now, of course, international organizations can play their part. The OECD just created a new committee, dedicated, specialized committee on SMEs and entrepreneurshp. So, you know, we had a working group, and we thought it was so important to upgrade it to an SME full committee. Now, so that's about the SMEs. Now, let me talk about the startups. I warned you. I said the startups are a special type of SME. And so most, if not all, the challenges that I talked about the SMEs, they apply to the startups. But there are some differences when you talk about startups. Startups are the engines of growth. They are the creators of employment. They're the drivers of innovation. For example, before the pandemic, young firms represented 20% of all the business jobs. Okay, fine, 20%, that's fine. But half of the new jobs. So in the margin, it was crucial. It was absolutely crucial. They also generated half of the productivity gains. So it's difficult to understand the modern times without the startups as being an integral part. I still remember I was with the mayor of Tel Aviv in a visit to Israel as a Secretary General of the OECD, and he said, we were in Rothschild Avenue, he said, choose one building, any building. So I did. And then he said, choose a floor. So, you know, any floor. He said, I did the third floor, you know, whatever I did. So we went to the third floor of that building, and there were 7 startups in that third floor of that building, which I had chosen at random, you know. And then they would go, he said, if you go to any of the buildings in this neighborhood, you will find 10 startups in every floor, in every building. Now, actually, I was told then that in those days, not too long ago, that there were more startups in Israel than there were in all of Europe. So I said, bravo for Israel, but how terrible for Europe. Huh? Now, when you tell me that there are about 12,000 startups in Italy, etc., you know, so maybe you're catching up, which is good. But indeed, in many European countries, many of these startups were being created in sectors with relatively low productivity, accommodation, retail, construction. In France, for example, around 90% of all the new jobs were created after the financial crisis in activities that were below average in terms of wages. Close to 2/3 in Germany. The United Kingdom also. They were in low productivity activities. Because the support and the enabling environment for the high productivity, high growth, technologically driven startups was not working. Simple as that. After the last financial crisis, 2008, 2009, we did not get it right. We could not get it right. Now, we seem to be doing better. Now, remember, Dropbox, Uber, Airbnb, WhatsApp, Groupon, Pinterest, even Alibaba's Taobao were created, during times of crisis. And in most countries, business creations have already rebounded quite strongly. We can expect that in the wake of the current crisis, we will see a similar explosion in innovation. Not least because of the acceleration towards digital, which was forced upon us. But the idea is that if enabled, we'll be able to leverage on the intrinsic advantages, cutting-edge technology, nimbleness, the innovation, the adaptability in adopting new developments and technologies. So, how, if, challenging times, but also times of opportunity for those that are bold, but that are armed. You don't need just to be bold. You need to be armed with the proper tools. How can we enable them? How can we empower them? How can we give them the force? Well, efficient and effective access to finance. The ability to leverage intangible assets. To provide support and incentives for R&D. R&D. Innovation does not happen spontaneously. It has to be produced. Well, here you have the 5 sectors that you have prioritized for this particular conference, where it was said 70% or 80% of all the investment is in those sectors. So we seem to be on the right track. Then the awareness of support initiatives. What is there? I mean, we have to tell the people that there are these facilities. We have to let them know. We have to lead them by the hand and say, come, go to this guichet, go to this little office and then you will be supported. Or get on the internet and you will be supported. Better arrangements to support what I would call second chance entrepreneurs. One of the things that struck me a lot, and this applies both to Israel but also to the United States, is that he said, we never support in this incubator of startups, we never support anybody who has not failed at least twice. You say, what? In Mexico, you fail once, you have this black spot all your life, It goes with you. It's like a burden. It's a terrible thing. Well, a little bit in Italy, not so bad, yeah? So please. So university business collaborations. And then, again, skills. Did I tell you about skills? Yes, skills. Okay. Now, so how about the place? The place. Cities is where it's all happening. Now, in the world today, we are mostly in cities, 52% already. That includes in China, everywhere, But in the OECD, which is our natural ambiance, we are 80% cities, 75%, 80%. So cities is where it is all happening. Therefore, the enabling environment provided locally, the tangible, intangible infrastructure, the networks, the technologies that allow commerce and ideas to flow and to be diffused, is absolutely critical. And smart cities are at the core of this, and or I have to say, should be at the core. If they are not, they should be. This is where it's happening. Over the past 2 decades, the digital solutions that underpin smart cities have proliferated around the world. But as a way to build more efficient, more livable urban environments, and never have digital technologies and innovation been so valuable to help cities navigate the crisis and to accelerate the transition towards a more sustainable, resilient future. Now, some cities, of course, have been using the momentum and the recovery to put people back at the center of the digitalization. Remember, dear friends, this is all about increasing well-being. If it is not about, how do you say, benessere, see, benessere. If it is not about well-being, it's not worth the paper it is written on. In the end, it has to produce an increased level of well-being. Now, you have some interesting examples. Here, the city of Florence, for example, this so-called right to the network. Interesting, accelerating the digitalization to reach already 85% of municipal services, or like ensuring data privacy, security at the same time. But also, how do you stop the question of the digital divide, the distance between people, but also between cities. Now, smart cities was largely supply-driven in the beginning. Today, more attention is paid to how smart cities can deliver better opportunities, better well-being for all residents. Now, the same enabling environment that delivers these goals matter, of course. What are we talking about? Imagine, security. Just a feeling of feeling comfortable, feeling safe, walking on the street at night. Inequalities, jobs, education, healthcare, mobility, energy, water. Waste. How do you deal with waste? Housing, local taxation, civic engagement, digital infrastructure, or processes like the coordination between the national government and the regional government and the city governments and the local government, So now, why did I not mention the obvious, which were the large companies with the large technological changes, etc.? Well, the reason is because they have all sorts of reasons why they are being pressured to adopt technological change. I am talking about those areas that need specific national policies to promote. I'm not talking about those that will take care of themselves in a way. Why? Because shareholders, NGOs, stakeholders, regulators, the stock market, the financial market, Wall Street, whatever, the financial sector, the media, all will take care of pushing the large companies. These days, large companies have to be resilient. They have to be green. They have to be resilient, not only resilient, but they have to be inclusive. Yes, That means leave no one behind. But they have to be and look like they are being. This is like, she's Caesar's wife, you know, that had to be, they had to be honest, but look like she was honest also. This is the same thing. Here, these companies have to be green, they have to be resilient, they have to be inclusive, but they also need to show that they are being such. So, in fact, they have an obligation to show how much of the above they actually do, lest they get a nasty response from the regulators, from the markets, or from the consumers. In fact, it's not a choice. In the case of large companies, it's a matter of survival. You know, many of the classical companies of 10 years ago, 15 years ago, are now gone because they did not update, they did not upgrade, they did not understand these rules. So think about it for a moment. What are we talking about? The digital revolution, information, or disinformation, right? Please, and the impact on democracy. This is part of the services. Trade, investment, migration, climate change, biodiversity, tax transparency, digital taxation, and of course, the pandemic, where we still have the problem of the pandemic. These are the challenges. They can all be enhanced, they can be promoted, they can be accelerated by adopting the most appropriate, the most challenging, the latest technological innovations. But remember, they are the instruments. They are tools. They have to be preceded by something in which you have a lot to say, which are the policies. So, if you put the policy needs and the tools together, then you could get the highest possible level of well-being. And in the end, as I said, that's what it's all about. Pre-COVID, during the COVID, and of course, post-COVID. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the